Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. Welcome back, everyone. I am super pumped to introduce you to today's guest, Dr. Joli Hamilton. She is an AASECT certified sex educator, which I'm so excited. Today's conversation with myself and Joli, we are talking about creative monogamy. I'm very excited for you guys to hear this. It's all about finding the right relationship style for your unique self, because as we know, every person is different and every relationship is different. So this is going to help you understand the process of what creative monogamy can look like, and even possibly some consensual non-monogamy if that is in your wheelhouse. So a little bit about Joli. So again, Dr. Joli Hamilton, she is a relationship coach for couples who color outside the lines. She is a research psychologist, a TEDx speaker, one of my goals, and a sex certified sex educator. Joli's also the author of the best-selling book, Project Relationship, The Entrepreneur's Action Plan for Passionate, Sustainable Love. Definitely adding this to my reading list for sure. And she has spent the past 2 decades studying and reimagining what love can be if we open up our imaginations to possibilities. And Joli helps people create partnerships that are custom built for their authentic selves. No more shrinking, pretending, or hiding required. I'm so pumped for you guys to hear this episode today. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. So thanks so much, Joli, for being on today. I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with you today. It's something that I want to say gets a little buzz around for sure, but I think that there are more people curious in it than like to admit. So I think a podcast is a great platform to talk about these things that people don't so often have the courage to ask questions about. So tell us about you. So how did you even get in this field of creative monogamy?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I got there by making all the mistakes, right? The way so many of us educators find ourselves having to study our way out of our own problems first. So I was married to someone, fell in love with someone else, and had no idea what to do. And it was 2009, so did not have the resources that we have available now. I am definitely the kind of person who's like, I will find a way. Didn't have the terminology, didn't know what to do. So I studied. I just kept looking. And, you start with the ethical slut, or you start with something that's right there. And that's great. I love a good resource. I mean, my bookshelves are filled with them. But I couldn't find a guide. I really needed a person, or many people perhaps, who had been there and could tell me all the many ways that I might craft a new, either creatively monogamous or non-monogamous agreement, something that was going to work for me either before I got divorced, because that's what happened in that scenario, or as I jumped into my first triad right afterwards and had no idea what I was doing. I wish I'd known people who were really in it and doing it. And I didn't start to really meet those people until I had already, I was knee deep in a doctorate studying polyamory and jealousy as my research topic. So yeah, I'm just out here being what I wish had existed in the world, as so many sex educators are doing right now, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, one thing that is so special about our field is that we're not just preaching to you, right? The things that we're teaching to our clients and the people that follow us, we're actually doing the work ourselves. And so somebody that is, with that background and going through divorce and then entering into a triad, and I'm sure exploring so many things underneath that umbrella, you're able to help people in a better way because you've been through it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's right away, you come up against some big problems, right? Like, people assume that there's a hierarchy in an educator's mind. Like, do they proselytize about polyamory, or do they really believe in monogamy at all costs? I'm actually relationship structure agnostic. I believe that you have to create it yourself. And I believe that because in my experience, it's the only thing that really works for each person in the relationship to feel safe and nurtured and to be able to explore and have the growth-oriented experience of life that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't made all of them, literally every single mistake, and then needed to dig my way out of those mistakes. It's been 12 years of back-breaking labor to figure out how to do this really, really well.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because it's not an easy road and you're going to be up against a lot of roadblocks. And I'm excited to talk about this. When you said exactly what you said about creating your own unique relationship, and that's one of the things that I read in your bio as well. If you think about when we're comparing our relationships, right? Who do we have to look up to? Most of us come from a divorced family, and so that relationship model that we saw as young children probably wasn't the best, model to be basing our own relationships off of. So I love this work that you're doing because you're really getting down to the individual or individuals in that relationship and really digging back the layers of figuring out what it is that they want and then helping them create that relationship, which I'm assuming then is how you came up with this thing called creative monogamy.
Yeah. I found that I needed a term to help people understand that I think that having exclusivity in some areas of your relationship is completely natural. Lots of people choose to have some exclusive connections to different people in lots of different realms. In fact, I rarely see people who don't have that. Sometimes it's just because of happenstance. I happened to procreate with this particular person, or I happened to buy a house with this particular person. But it's really hard to actually have some idea that we never have any exclusivity. And so I wanted a way for people to understand that we're actually all recreating monogamy every time we do it. Mm-hmm. And if we accept a boilerplate version of monogamy, what we get is our partner and the family that they grew up in the models. I'm a Jungian psychologist, so I'm looking back at what did we get modeled? And then we have ours and what we grew up in. And even if those were two super excellent, spectacular examples, imagine that they were the best possible worlds, they're still different. Mm-hmm. And so now you come together, and usually I find people have built their monogamy on a bunch of implicit agreements that were never really discussed, negotiated, crafted. And then worst of all, they didn't build in resilience for when they each grew and changed. And that's what I want to see everyone create, no matter how many people they want to have sex with or have live in their house. Doesn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. I want that explicit agreement.
Yeah. Which is so important, right? Because then you're leveling out the playing field, right? You're coming to terms. This is what we're okay with. This is what we're not okay with. And here's how we're going to make it work. Like you said, having this guide. So is there a definition, or do you have a definition that you like to use for creative monogamy?
Yeah, I keep it really simple. It is a process that two individuals enter into that involves thought experiments, discussions, conversation, fun, and a lot of experiments, really, to agree on exactly what we are doing in this relationship together and where we're allowing for expansion. And things that might not be exclusive, like, friendships. Mm. It's really as simple as that. It's just about really creating the relationship you want to have. End of story.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. And so, okay, so you said this is a process. So tell us, I'm a very type A person. So is there a step 1, step 2? How does this work?
Yeah. Yeah. The first step is the one that people most often skip. Usually I'll get people who come to me and they say, okay, we want to do this. We're ready. I'm like, awesome. Great. Do you each know individually what you want? And I'm guessing you get the same problem. I'm like, okay, if we haven't done that step, let's go back to the drawing board. I need each person to enter into a dialogue with themselves. And that might involve my help, my drawing out from them. What are their values? What do they want? How did they learn about relationships? What is it affecting them and impacting them in relationships in patterns over the course of their life, so that we can then come together and together craft an agreement. But the agreement's actually a very late state of this process of getting clear about what we actually want and what our boundaries are, and then learning how to do some experiments to find out whether we're just acting out what we were taught, what we were modeled, or whether we're doing something we intentionally want. So it is a process, and I like to think of it as something that people can take on in big ways, like a great big overarching, like you could take this on. I have people go through a year-long program where we really delve into this. Or you could bite it off in small doses. I mean, I Instagram about it for a reason. It's because I think spending 15 minutes thinking about what you want is better than nothing. Yeah. Start there. That's fine.
And do you find that it's hard, I'm sure for many people, I ask this question a lot in my practice as well, and it's so many people are like, well, I don't know what I want. And I find that's because they don't know what's available to them. Like you and I, we're in this field. We know that there's so many things and still things that we don't even know about. But there are people that might think, no, my relationship is fine, but you don't go into life wanting a relationship that you categorize as fine, right? I want mind blowing. I want epic. I want, things that you see in a movie, but in a realistic standpoint. And, so is that a challenge that you see that comes up for people, is like, they don't even know where to start when you ask them that question?
Yeah. Often what comes up is a list of things they would like their partner to change, because they've been looking out. And I will give people credit. When someone shows up to me and they're like, I need my partner to change this, this, and this, I'm glad that they're at least aware that they have some dissatisfaction. And then I just ask them to back up a step. Let's just take a breather, back up a little bit and make space for imagination. As a Jungian, I take the imagination really, really seriously, right? I want to know what you're dreaming about. I want to know what your sexual fantasies are. Not because we have to act them out, but because those are like tea leaves. I can read them. We can go into what it is you're craving, and then figure out how we want to actually enact it. Because just because you fantasize about something, or you daydream about it, or you think you should be doing it, that has nothing to do with what you want. What you want is going to be discovered after a whole bunch of introspection and actually vocalizing that. Really, either vocalizing it or writing it down is a necessary part of the equation, because as long as it's inside, I find that people really, they don't know for sure whether they want it. It's when it hits the air, right? That's when they can start to do a litmus test and say, oh, okay, that does land. Or, oh, you know what? That was actually something I totally wanted to stay as fantasy material. Don't want that in my relationship. Or, I'm trying to live out some movie. Don't do that either.
Yeah. No. Exactly. And I love that you explain that on here, because that is something I think a lot of people feel shame around too, is what their fantasies are, and that very, very fear or guilt even of opening up and sharing them with a partner for fear of judgment or rejection or, so many things.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, as soon as you begin to explore what you want, you're bound to run up against something that you feel either shame or guilt about, right? You're bound to run up against something. And if you do, getting that out, sharing it with your partner, okay, now we've just compounded how big this can feel. So I like to do a lot of level setting and sort of permission setting. It's okay to simply talk about this fantasy. We're not talking about enacting it, and we're not talking about making your partner responsible for making it happen, because that's another big hang up. People don't want to voice something if they're afraid they can never get it. And since I'm at the edge of monogamy and non-monogamy a lot, where people are still figuring out, what will this mean? Do I want sexual exclusivity or not? Just because you're contemplating it doesn't mean you're going to do anything particular. That's why we want to enter into that exploratory process.
Yeah, I love that. So the first step then, identifying what it is that you want in the relationship. And then is the next step then you essentially facilitate this conversation with them to be able to share these things with their partner. And I'm sure there's some negotiation that goes back and forth. And in this phase is then where something like non-monogamy might come up for clients.
Yeah, this is where we sort of prioritize. We go through what the wants are, like, okay, it's not just about what do we want the most, but what feels safe to explore now. So if we're, say, in a year-long container, we can take our time and we might get to exploring around the edges of sexual exclusivity in month 6 or 7, not month 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because in month 2, we might be exploring, hey, do we know how to ask each other for time alone? Do we know how to have a conversation about whether our parents should be, interrupting our day-to-day life? Sticky stuff. Do we know how to do that? And once we've prioritized, we still have to decide, is everybody on board for having this discussion? And this is where it becomes this iterative process of what do we have to do together in order to create experiments so that we can try this out before we commit and say, now we are doing this. Because we got to try it. So I offer this process of like, let's see how this goes. But we're not writing this in stone. This is not even this is an agreement to try something on. I wouldn't want to buy jeans without trying them on, let alone a relationship agreement. So we prioritize and then we devise some experiments that we can start with. And from there, it takes a really custom road. And I think most people are familiar with this, right? Mm-hmm. This is how we go through so many things in life. How do you choose a career? Got to experiment. How do you choose anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's such a unique way to apply it to this setting, because so many people don't think about relationships like that. And again, I think it goes back to how you were raised and what that relationship looked like in your household. And you probably are modeling a lot of what you saw within your parents, whether that be good or bad. And so this is such a unique process, which I love, because you said it is not a one size fits all. It's very much to that person, that couple, of what they want. And so many exciting things can happen. Like we said, you don't know what you don't know. And working with someone, a sex educator, a sex coach, a sex therapist, that just opens up so many new doors for you. And even having the conversation with your partner, they might know something or, have a fantasy or want to try something that you've never even heard about. My podcast episode this week is about edging. I can't believe the outpour of people that are like, oh my God, I listened to your episode. I can't wait to try this. I've never heard of this before. And I remember sitting in, sex education school and learning about this. I'm like, holy shit, like this is awesome. I can't wait to do this.
Right. I remember the exact moment when I learned about edging, and it was groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
I remember who I was having sex with, like what we were doing. And I was in my mid-20s, and I thought I'd invented it. I genuinely, I was like, this is a download from the gods. It was so silly. Like even later that day, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just a thing. Because it has to be. Everybody must know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have to have our imaginations stretched somehow. For me, that experience, it really came as like just an idea, a spontaneous idea appeared. But goodness gracious, that is not how I want to make my life happen. I'm ready to actually actively design how I want my sex life to go, how I want my pleasure to go. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wait around for spontaneous inspiration, especially when it comes to issues like this where most of us don't get an education on it. I mean, even if you got a sort of decent model, even if you got a great model, even if you had a really progressive sex education, you're still, I'm still exposed to new things all the time. And I train the trainer. Mm-hmm. I teach sex therapists and educators and counselors. I still learn new stuff constantly.
Yeah.
So whoever just had their mind blown, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yes, one of my favorite things about this field is that it is always changing. And I tell people on the podcast all the time, your personal desires are always changing. What you liked last month or even yesterday, you might not like today. So you have to keep exploring. You have to keep pushing the bill, right? And figuring out what it is that's going to make you tick, literally.
Yeah. And what an opportunity to allow your partner to grow too. Like that for me is one of the pivotal moments when I notice that clients shift from being unable to like allow things to happen to being excited because their partner's bringing them change. Like, okay, let's game on. We're gonna figure out where this fits. And if it's not a good fit, we have tools to, we can be resilient and we can get back onto a place where we're jiving together. We're okay.
Yeah.
That's magic. And that is like, I think that is like elite level relating, because now really, I mean, if I'd known how to do that in my first marriage, it would have ended at the very least without the acrimony, because we would have realized, oh, we've reached a spot where maybe we're actually at an impasse. But that doesn't mean we don't love each other. I wish I'd had that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this too, because it takes away the finger pointing or the blaming. Like you said, a lot of times you get people that come to you and they say, I want them to change this, this, and this. But when you can adapt and take this process and apply it to your relationship and you're doing it together, like you said, that's high level related. And I love that. And something that I've experienced in my own marriage, even, since doing this work and getting into this field. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see that other person grow, that person that you love and cherish so much, and to hear their ideas and their wants and won'ts and all the things. So this is great. So what are the challenges that you see that come up when this negotiation process happens? What are some of the things you see couples get some pushback on? Or maybe this is a good time to talk about the jealousy piece.
Yeah, I think that the number one thing will not surprise anyone. It's that some of the stuff that comes up is going to trigger your partner. Like, it's just inevitable. When I say trigger, I mean in the broadest sense of the word. Some of it is going to land like a load of rocks and not be great. And learning to accept that you might get a no or a maybe or a later opens up space for you to bravely, vulnerably share, and then wait and see and figure out where this might go. Or best of all, reclaim and figure out how you can meet that need or want yourself, because I've got a million ideas for how to do that. I'm sure you do too. Most needs can be met by ourselves too. So what I find is people trip when they think that because they're inside a process, there won't be any discomfort. In my experience, if you can prioritize growth over comfort, you will absolutely come out of this like leveled up, excited, and passionate about growing together and learning together. And if you think it's going to be comfortable or just easy, it's just going to unfold in front of you, that's where people, they stumble. And then oftentimes they forget that this was the path that they wanted. They wanted to explore, or they at the very least wanted to meet their partner where they wanted to explore. Sometimes it's that, the more resistant partner who's like, I was just here for them. I didn't really want to do that. That could be enough reason. That could be. You could just say, okay, I'm in this discomfort because I'm committed to this person, and I'm gonna be with that. I think of it a lot like, when my partner's going through grief. Maybe I didn't plan that on my calendar, and yet that's where we are. It's not any different. Maybe there's some stuff that we'll have to let go of, some grief to process, or some letting go of a relationship that doesn't exist anymore because now there's something new, or letting go of some codependence that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You asked about jealousy, and jealousy holds a really special place for me because I researched it for my doctoral dissertation in polyamorous individuals, and now I'm repeating that study with monogamous individuals right now. And what I've learned about jealousy is that it loves to hide. It loves to cloak itself. But the only reason it's doing that is because it's archetypal. It just exists. We're not going to get rid of it. It slips under the surface because we're afraid of it. It's attached to fear. And so when people show up to this kind of process, they often can't name that they're jealous, or they'll even deny completely that there's any jealousy anywhere. All I need is for people to open their imagination to the fact that jealousy might be showing up And that's not a bad thing. Jealousy is a wonderful teacher. It's neutral until you figure out how to act on it. You have a moment. There's always a moment in jealousy where it's neutral. And then, so yeah, I think jealousy is an opportunity in this work.
Yeah. I love that. And to go into something like this and think that jealousy is not going to come up is probably very unrealistic, I would say.
Yeah. And, even when people come to me and say, okay, we are not on board with anything that would come close to the umbrella of non-monogamy. We definitely want, say, sexual exclusivity, romantic exclusivity, and maybe even financial exclusivity. Let's say they want those things. So that's going to look closer to your sort of standard issue monogamy from the outside. But perhaps they want to get clearer about what it means to have intimate friendships. What that means, how close emotional connections will be. And really quickly, jealousy can rear its head, but we don't really know how to name jealousy when we're not talking about sex and romance. So usually people will start immediately hiding behind anything. Really, any rock or chair in the room will do, because it really hurts to admit that we're jealous if jealousy is tied to shame for us. And for many of us, we were told that being jealous is bad, especially when we got a new sibling that came around. We were told that being jealous is bad, so it's tied to some really deep shame and guilt. And we're told that if we feel jealous, we should tell our partner to stop doing something. It's our partner's problem to fix it. And here's the thing, it just doesn't work. I wish it did. If it did, we would have fixed it a long time ago. But if we couldn't fix it while we were basically under, rule from top down, we're not going to fix it now. Not that way. I invite people into a dialogue with their jealousy to figure out what it is that it's showing up for. It has a purpose. I promise. I've never seen it not have a purpose.
Yeah, and I feel it's a defense mechanism in some form as well. Just a signal to us to maybe have our radar up, but I love the word explore and just explore, like you said, where this is coming from and sort of peel back the layers of where the root of this jealousy is coming from specifically.
Right, because when jealousy shows up, and I always remind people, jealousy and envy are different because jealousy is a triangle and envy is a dyad, nice and simple, so you can just check. But the jealousy triangle, the third can be an imaginal thing. It can be totally in your imagination. It's really easy to make one out of an Instagram account, for instance. So if jealousy is showing up and there is what we'll call a real threat to the interruption of that love bond, great. The jealousy is a useful indicator. But I still need to know what to do next, because usually we clamp down really hard, and that tends to not get us what we actually want, which is reassurance, maybe a renegotiation of what commitment looks like, perhaps renegotiated behaviors. There are a million ways we could talk about it, but if we clamp down really hard or we get really aggressive too quickly, jealousy is really tied to aggression too. It's tied to, it's tied to murder. There are very few emotions tied to murder. Sure it is. I want people to take jealousy really seriously, but also hold it with the tenderness of it's there because when you were an infant, you needed to preserve the love bond with your primary caregiver. Simple as that. So what do we do with it now? So tender and noticing.
Love that. Yeah, and that all goes to say with anybody doing this type of work is to be gentle on yourself. Give yourself some grace, and your partner too, or partners going through this, because it is, like you said, it is not an easy road. It can be a very, very fun road, but it's not 100% of the time going to be fun. There's probably going to be some tears involved and some, again, digging and introspect and all things in between.
Totally. And some of the people I've seen struggle the most with jealousy, they're not doing non-monogamy. They're not even anywhere near it. They're just struggling with it because they've been struggling with it for a long time. Maybe from the first time they had a close friendship or deep romantic attachment, they recognize how it shows up now. Quick self-check. Do you find yourself compelled to check your partner's social media? Do you find yourself compelled to know where they are at all times? If you do, okay, let's look more closely at what's going on for you, where this original wounding came from. Because your partner might actually be doing things that are outside of your agreement. But even if that's true, we're only going to get to a spot where you can feel different if we deal with where this shows up for you over and over again, because that compulsivity feels terrible. And it can go on even if your partner's doing everything right, everything by the book. So,
yeah. I'm glad that we mentioned this in this episode for sure, because I think that'll be a good thing for people to have kind of clarity on, and also just some validation around if jealousy is showing up for them. Yeah. And you also have a book. I would love to hear more about your book and what that would be able to offer people that are listening.
Yeah. So the book is an interesting it was a start. You know, when you write something and you realize you have so much to say that it just like downloads through you. You're like, there it is. I wrote this book, Project Relationship, The Entrepreneur's Action Plan for Passionate, Sustainable Love, because I knew that I wanted to have something in the world that I could point to and say, here are some basic tools that I have found to be really, really helpful for you to have the relationship you wish to have. I didn't write it specifically for non-monogamy. I didn't write it to try to solve any one problem. It's a 12-step action plan for like, okay, try adding this tool. It's to add tools to your toolkit for how you do relationships. And a bunch of them, you don't actually need your partner's buy-in for. You can just use them yourself. Like, I go over the basic concept of projection, but the way I talk about it is a way for people to regather parts of themselves that they accidentally are letting other people have, and they're forgetting that they have themselves. That's a really straightforward idea, but I find people usually need a little nudge, a little action to take to actually do it. And then of course there's my favorite chapter. Chapter 8 is just, sex. Just the basics. Just get into it.
I love that. We have a lot in common.
Gotta go there. Gotta.
Well, that is wonderful. And I think this whole conversation just is so great. And I think it just gave, like you said, so much permission to people that are in relationships to explore more and to do the work and understand that if you're not happy with where you're at right now, and even if you are happy with where you're at right now, there's still so much more available to you. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So it takes doing your own research, or perhaps hiring a coach or a therapist or somebody that can help guide you through this process, reading a book even, to sort of open up those doors. Is there anything else, Joli, that we didn't talk about on this episode that you think is helpful to mention?
Well, you mentioned something right before we came on about people taking their pleasure seriously, like really allowing themselves to feel it. And I think that it bears a lot of repeat, that not only do you get to have pleasure and centering pleasure is great for you, but that pleasure isn't just about sex. It's such an enormous concept that I just want to invite people into the idea that if you're doing great right now and you think your relationship is doing really well, awesome. That's a great time to do the next layer of effortful work. Because frequently what I see is people show up when they just had a baby, they just changed living situations, a job has changed, something's happened, an infidelity has happened, whatever it is. And that's great, we can work from there. But I have seen literal magic happen when people show up and they're like, it's good. And they want to know what's on the other side of that. And it's completely normal to not know what to do next, to not know how to prepare yourself. We weren't provided this education. Reach out, reach toward the books, the podcasts, reach toward the coaches that are out there, and find the one that's the right fit for you where you are. Because there's no shame in just not knowing and having to look around. But if you're in a good spot right now, oh yeah, do it. Be there for yourself, because that's just more pleasure available to you.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned too, that pleasure isn't always just sex related. And so it's finding out the different areas of the relationship that can possibly improve, or friendships, or your own self-care, or, so many different things that are in our life that bring us pleasure, that when we can tap into those things, it's only making us a better person, which is in turn making your relationship better and stronger. And that's one thing that I think people freak out about when I bring up the word self-care or anything around essentially the idea of them putting themselves first or prioritizing their pleasure. That freaks people out. But when you can state it in a way that you say, when you can show up the best as you can in this world, it is only benefiting everybody else around you. I think that helps to eliminate a lot of shame for them.
Yeah. I find that it's similar to saying like, you can find pleasure talking about money. And a lot of people will be totally shocked. Like, seriously? I do not think so. Yeah, you can. And it's not just about having more of it. It's about figuring out the way that works for the two of you to talk about it. So it could be around anything. But if you want to unpack that, get comfortable with the idea that you're going to go through some discomfort in order to find that pleasure, which is true for almost everything. I mean, I don't know. I had some bad masturbatory cycles before I found my jam. So whatever it takes.
Yes, definitely. Bad positions, bad toys, throw them away. Like,
you have that cord short out. Things can go really bad.
Oh, this was great. Well, thank you again so much for coming on and talking about this. And if people are interested in reaching out to you, how do you prefer that they reach you?
Yeah, the best way would be for people to go to listentojoli.com. Just listen to Joli, Joli. And right there, they can grab actually my top 5 relationship guides. And in there is my very short, like 1-page guided conversation to have with your partner about what is sex. Anybody who listens to this podcast would enjoy that conversation. I'm certain that you have had this conversation yourself. I find that just having a piece of paper in front of you so that you're like, okay, this is what they say we're supposed to talk about. Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's just such a way to dial it in. So yeah, you can grab that at listentojoli.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much. This was very helpful, very beneficial, I think, to the listeners, and definitely a fun conversation to have. And I'm excited that we were able to connect, and I'm excited to stay in contact with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Rachel. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.